I wanted to start the morning, first of all, thanking you for being here, but I always begin with a little prayer because I like a gathering of grace. So just settle in. I like the prayers of Teresa of Ávila, who often just said, "Hover over me, God. Surround me with your grace. Remind me to stay present and let nothing disturb me. With you all things are possible in my soul and in my life. Hover over me. Let your grace fill me, fill my heart, and let this day be a healing one. Amen." Well, I just said to Norm before we started how excited I am to work with him. I always have been. This is our 30th anniversary. Yeah. We've been together 30 years. That's older than David. I mean, isn't that amazing? 30 years. We met 30 years ago. And I mean, so much has happened since that time, but certainly everything that I teach began with him. Everything. And it was Norm who coined the occupation medical intuitive. And we regret not trademarking it, that's for sure. But Norm coined it. And when we were discussing what to call me, because I was a publisher at the time. But I thought what we would do in this first session is begin by sharing a little bit about how, I think, maybe we'll just share a little bit about how that chemistry began and what inspired the work of medical intuition, because it didn't exist then. And then I will take over my session, Norm will take over his, I'll take over mine, and that's the rhythm. Perfect. When I met Norm 30 years ago, you'll have to excuse me, I had foot surgery. This is not an injury, it's not an accident, it's nothing dramatic. It was foot surgery for a bunion. But I like attention. I still can't walk on it full time. So I have to keep it propped up and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why I have to do this. Although actually I like it. Anyway, what's significant? The way I would have taught this a few years ago and the way I'm going to teach it today is entirely different. And one of the things I like about my life and the way my brain works is that I continually re-see things. My brain's like a mandala. It never stops. The world never stops talking to me. And I think now, what I need to first say to you is nothing is as fascinating as the world we live in. That's number one. And the way we need to understand how significant the world we live in is to each one of us, and that world is itself a speaking classroom to you. And that the significance of the time we are living in is itself a factor in how you need to understand your consciousness, your life, and your health. Everything. It is one of the major players of the elements or the ingredients in how you evaluate everything you think about. If you held a board, like an Algonquin table, at which sat, Lillian Hellman and Dashiell Hammett and all these great authors that you brought together every week for a intellectual salon. Imagine that you gathered together the most significant elements of what made your consciousness bubble. What is that beep? Is someone's phone on? Because we don't want that. Okay, so.
The back of my chair squeaks.
Oh, I don't care about that. Okay, so one of the players would certainly be your belief system. And all that is involved in your belief system. And one of the players would be the atmosphere itself, the quality of the atmosphere. One of the players, and you just list them, but one would be the consciousness of this time and how it is how it is weaving itself into you and how you are weaving yourself into it. And how the science of medical intuition is one of the emerging sciences of our day. But what does that mean, that that's an emerging science that we have to have? It means that we ourselves are undergoing an evolution that requires that as a science. It means that our own energy, our own nature has evolved to the point that allopathic medicine alone is insufficient. Not wrong, but insufficient. It means that we are multi-sensory. Intuition's not a gift. We have evolved to the point of being multi-sensory. We require now the instrumentation that accommodates our energetic anatomy system. Not just, and here's where I see the big gaps in people's reasoning. You don't need the medical intuitive system just to figure out what's wrong with you. You need to know about this to construct the nature of reality itself, period. Just period. You need to understand that all systems of life simply have a chakra system. But also, beyond the chakra system, for me, that's the crudest level of the energy system. Now I see that. I wrote Creation of Health 1980, when did we write it? It's 86 or something. 88. Way back in 88. Today, I would put the chakras and then I would go into the tree of life, and then I would go into the mansions of the soul. The chakras are base to me. There's nothing sacred about them. They're locators now. They're just locators. Knowledge of the chakras will not help you heal. Zero, zero, zero. I see it completely differently now. So long as you exist in the language of energy and in the energy realm, in my opinion, my experience, is that you get little help with the healing department. You get relief from pain, you get relief, you get intervention. But the actual absence, where you don't have any illness anymore, it is gone, requires the next realm, which is grace. So you go from matter to energy to grace. That's the ascension. And what converts the energy that you're working with to the realm of grace is you. You're the vessel. It's your capacity to undergo a transition, to become capable of dealing more with the capacity to see the world through light into matter, the speed at which you can perceive, the speed at which you can comprehend the the laws of how light, energy becomes matter, and it's just law. It's just law. It's the nature of science at the spiritual alchemical level. And the way in which you finally detach from mythologies of the mind and work with the nature of mystical law and get that that's the expression of the sacred. That's it. It's all law. What is in one is in the whole. This is what the great teachers have taught us, whether it's Jesus or Buddha. They weren't here to play games with I'm God and all that nonsense. They were teachers of law, and that's it. And you learn the laws. You learn the laws. And what medical intuition is about is law. It's a science of law. And to the extent that you want to recognize the laws of the body, that's medicine, the laws of the spirit, that's chakras, and the laws of the soul, and that's the mystical realm. The laws of the body keep you from from getting sick. The laws of the spirit are pain management. The laws of the soul are healing. That's how we break it down. I believe that Norm's made these brilliant breakthroughs, and he'll tell you all about it, but these brilliant breakthroughs with, I think, sacred oils and acupressure systems that bridge that gap between the spirit and the soul with in my opinion, vibrational bridges. Conduits. We talk about this later, but suffice to say at this point that, let me just use this column. You can hear me coming, that's for sure. Okay, this is a drawing. I only have a few drawings, and I'm not very good at it. So this is something you're gonna be very grateful for. But the way I want you to understand your chakra system, and then this is a third column. Okay, can we do that? We'll just put this right down here. We have 8, 9, 10. So this is your world of physical. So this is energy, and this is grace. Okay. So these are the three levels of consciousness. And this is, for me, the realm that is opening up. But I'm going to hit a pause button here and position this era. It's very strange to have something like this, because I'm used to teaching and pacing. And I kind of come at it from this way, because I think I get to just say a couple of outrageous things in an opening lecture and then get back to basics. But the more I witness what is happening today, Norm and I were talking about depression because of the death of the suicides, the enormous number of suicides. And then I had written a little thing on Robin Williams for Facebook, my Facebook, which exploded a discussion all over the place. Everything from, you don't know anything about depression, you bitch, to, wow, delete. Yeah, we'll take this. Wow, that, I mean, all over the place. But what was astounding to me was how many people shared that their family members or loved ones had committed suicide. Or tried. I mean, wow, that was pretty astounding to me. And I consider alcoholism death by suicide. My brother died of alcoholism, and he couldn't get out of it, no matter what we did. So I am really familiar with the nightmare of the nightmare. And but the extent to which the suffering with depression, I mean, he mixed depression and alcohol. So when someone says, you don't know anything about it, I find depression fascinating because that's the one illness people will insist you don't know anything about. Oh, yes, you do. Or don't they want you to know something about it? Or don't they want you to know anything about their depression, or don't they want to get out of it? What the heck is that? You don't know anything about it. Well, then tell me about it. As I wrote about today. Well, why don't you tell me about it? I'm listening. You don't see me running away. Why are you angry at me that you're depressed? What is the nature of that disorder that you think I don't know anything about it, that I don't want to know? Why do they assume that no one knows anything about it? And then you're angry about that. And that they lash out in that way. People who are dying of cancer don't lash out and say, you don't know anything about it. Obviously they don't, because they'd be healed. But they don't turn that way. They don't turn on people that way. And believe you me, when you're dying of bone cancer, as a family member has, or spine cancer as another one has, or brain cancer as two of my family members have, there's a hell of a lot of pain involved. They don't lash out and say, you don't understand my pain. But they could. And it's gone on for some of them 18 years. That's pretty long. I'd say that's pretty long. I'd pit that against depression. So I mean, I find this a very curious thing. I just find it very curious. At the same time, I wonder why it is so prevalent in this society. More so than others. What's that about? The society that has the most is the most depressed? I find that curious. At any rate, it's also the society that has spearheaded I would say, investigation into the world behind the eye, because we have so much time to make ourselves our pet project. To take ourselves to seminars and to the spa and to therapy and to this and to that. We have so much time to do that. Or we also, and we do, and we have so much, like Norm and I said, I maintain so much. Everything has changed since entering the nuclear age, and as Norm said, not to mention that the nuclear family fell apart. And how much about that has reordered our sense of safety, our sense of security. And that is where our sense of how community has fallen apart. But let's hold that for a minute. All of these observations that you continually have to look at, like what is causing the breakdown? Because this is all in this world. You've got to look at the factors here when you are looking for any data, even as a medical intuitive, everything in the world around you, everything, carries a great deal of impact. Absolutely everything. I'm a history buff. And history, right here, the collective first chakra, is absolutely critical. And let's come up here to the 10th, which is the mystical laws. In the mystical world, you have to understand that as you ascend in your system, and you get up here, now you're dealing with perceptions that don't have any time. This one carries time, which means when I ask you, tell me about yourself, you're going to give me everything that has to do with time first. I was born here. I am this age. You're going to give me all the perceptions that have everything to do with physical time. Do you see what I'm saying here? That's what I mean by time. Eventually, you'll give me the perceptions that have nothing to do with time. I believe this, and I believe that, and I value this. These are your inner soul data that is transcendent of time. It has nothing to do with your history. It is your present that we are talking about. So pretty soon, as you trust me, you'll get to your data bank that has no time in it. And that's the trusted data bank. That's the gold resource. Are you with me here? This is what you get to in order to heal. You've got to get to the data bank that doesn't have any time in it, because it's timeless matter that heals the distortions in the physical world. So long as you remain in the world of time, you can't heal something that's been created by it. This is a great big, huge, big deal, people. Now, this first chakra that contains data is so rich. I love hanging out there, because I gather global data, global history, and you are woven, we are woven into the history of all global events. As such, you're woven into events yet to come. And that's in this energy system too. That's something I didn't see earlier when I first started out. I couldn't even, and this is important to understand, I couldn't understand that concept, much less see it. I would never have been able to read that any more than I could have read the 7 Mansions of Teresa when Norm and I first worked together. This is what you have to keep, a humble mind. Who knows how much I have no idea how much I don't know yet, but I know it's a big, huge, big deal. So little by little, I learn more. So what I'm teaching you today is what I know so far. What I know so far. And what I know so far has broadened my perspective on what I've learned so far. So having said that, this is what I now know to be very significant to me. In this physical world of history, now for me, the greater history of our own humanity plays a role in how I understand a person and how I understand what's happening to us now that I think is very significant. When I read, because we're so influenced by the sacred, because we're so influenced by sacred mythology, And like it or not, you are, we are. We can't escape that. Even if you're an atheist, it means I don't want any sacred mythology in me, which means it's in you. You just decided, get it out. Okay? I mean, you can't get it out. I mean, you know what I mean? It's like you wanting a sacred enema. I mean, that's, you see what I mean? You can't help it. You can't avoid it, you know? So, and I've never met anyone who's an old, dying atheist. They're always young and healthy. Have you ever noticed that? They're just so full of crap. Anyway.
They're not in the trenches.
Yeah, they're just full of crap. Anyway. And when one day something made me, I was reading the Psalms. And I went back to I don't know what in the world made me turn to the book of Genesis. But I did. And I was reading, then I love those, the Genesis, Exodus, Numbers, Leviticus, Deuteronomy. And I get a kick out of those books. And I was reading it, and it occurred to me, I said to myself, I think some of those things really happened just like they said they did, just like the writers said they did. I think when they wrote about angels being physical, coming to the when Abraham said, I heard this voice, and he said, Abram, who's talking to me? It is I, your Lord. And then when he was sent two visitors that were angels, and he said, come in and sit and eat with me. And when 140,000 angels were sent to go to battle with the Israelites against the Canaanites, or the tribe of Ur, I think actually it occurred to me as I was reading that actually happened, just the way it said. That those angels physically actually really did that. Now, why would I say that? And this is important. Because doubt hadn't been created yet. This is really significant. Doubt had to be created. It's a state of consciousness. They didn't have that. You have to appreciate, if you study the scripture, they lived within this world and that world. But their whole life was this world and what that world was up to with this world. If you look at the Romans and the Greeks, it was the same thing. It was this world and that world and what that world was up to with this world. And that was that. So if you look at the Romans and the Greeks, that world had all the power with this world. This is really important. I'm going to go on fast forward here. As we evolve, so let's say that was from 2000 BC to 2000. And during that time, if you look at mythology, human beings saw themselves essentially as completely powerless, and the heavens had all the power. So consciousness, they were empty vessels of power. All the power was out, and they were empty. And the mythologies said so. So that's why God, give me the words. That's why the physical being of an angel would have to be physical. What am I doing? Okay, that's why the physical being of an angel would have to be physical. Because they had absolutely nothing in them, so it would be physical. They're powerless. This would be all power. If you look at the Old Testament, there's no stories about them healing. They don't have any power in themselves. None. Zero. It's all here. The Romans don't have any individual power. The Greeks didn't see themselves as having. It was all this way. Plato kind of figured it out, but he said there's archetypes up in them there hills. Okay. But then what happens is the next era is born, and the human beings evolve to an era of, I don't know, maybe there's, the power starts to incarnate, and like the Romans and the Greeks, they develop the next level of mythology. They have kind of half god, half man. They get a Hercules, they get a Ulysses, they get mythic creatures where power begins to incarnate inside. A little bit like them. They start to get empowered a little bit. Consciousness is beginning to evolve on the inside. And then the next level happens, and here's the big game changer. A human being's born who's a half god, half man. The ultimate mythology is fulfilled. Jesus is born. The ultimate cosmic myth, a half god, half man creature comes to earth. And then, no more myths. No more. That's the end of the half god, half man, God to man mythology. It's over. No more. After that, matter gets very dense. And power comes completely into consciousness. Now we have to figure out how power goes within and works in the world behind our eyes. That's what that's what the world of Buddha and Jesus has been about, were the mechanisms in this world. The mechanisms behind the eye cooperating with the mechanisms of matter, the soul and matter, choice and matter, the relationship of yourself to creation and matter. This time, this extraordinary time that we are alive, is this transformation. Excuse me. This transformation is this grand shift about the awakening of the collective force of the whole of us. This was about discovering what we were inside of ourselves. This is about discovering how we must work collectively with our power. That we are not individuals. What is in one is in the whole. What you do to one, you do to the whole. This is about the real learning how to, and that's the rule of your health. What you do to one organ, you do to the whole. If you have a contaminated thought in one area, it gets the whole of you. As a member now of, I need my pen. Another image that you want to keep in your mind it's not an egg, it's a globe. Is that the days of thinking of yourself as a flatlander. You know, when I say, you know, where's your history? People will point. They go that way or they go back there. So that you actually have in your head like a geographic locator for history. History's that way, as if it's that way. And where's your future? Well, it's that way. Well, where is it? But it's that way. At the same time, you have a sense, we could talk about there not being any such thing as time, but it doesn't matter because you live in these contradictory thoughts, this antinomial way of thinking where two things that could coexist just bam, collide in each other, but you never sit down and think, I have to have a cup of coffee because I think I have a lot of things in my head that don't get along, and I have to really clear this out, But you don't. You just you're living in this sea of contradiction that says, how can I have this sense of history when I also know that there's no such thing as time? So maybe all things happen simultaneously. How would I reconstruct my universe if that were the case? How would that change how I perceived the world if I stepped out of the paradigm in this world, a paradigm that's ruled by time, and stepped into a paradigm of simultaneity? Now, a lot of people can visit that paradigm, but they don't want to live there. They think it's like fun, but they want to live there. So let's say that here you are, see, here you are, and that's a globe. Can you get that? This is a circle and a globe. So I want you to think of this as your inner net that matches the internet. And that you are connected to all things and all humanity and all life on the internet. So that this is what your energy field, this is your energy field, and it looks like this. So here you are physically, but you are connected. And this is your communication system, your invisible communication system all around you. Are you with me? Yep. Okay? And I'm going to make it even more delicious. On these are your archetypes. And so, if you have, for example, some of you might have a rescuer, some of you might have a princess, some of you might have a judge, whatever archetypes you have. But this is in linking with other people with that archetypal system. So that's how the law of magnetic attraction works. So your little unit, when you think, how do those synchronistic things happen? This is your wiring system. This is your wiring system. Everything is governed by law. Nothing happens without law. Everything is organized. It doesn't just happen. You are not apples that fall from trees. You're not random events. This is really important to understand. Because when it takes that thinking out of, that says, well, things just happen. No, they don't. No, they don't. You may not know the reason. You may never know the reason. Like the book of Job, where were you when I laid the foundations of this earth? Get out of my way. It may be that you will never comprehend. We are not someone who needs to know, deserves to know, whatever the reason. But there are laws behind everything. There are choices behind everything. Because this is a universe that is set up by mathematics and laws. And that's all there's to it. And every choice has an effect. What we don't get is how true that is. The second thing we don't get is that because we judge things subjectively, We think that a small thing, we say that's just a small thing. We don't get that there's no such thing as a small choice. We don't get that. We don't see the wiring or the effect every choice we make has on everything. We don't see the wiring of every choice or its long-term consequences. It is we who don't get it. Or for all you know, the cold that you have or the illness you have is the result of choices you made way back in college. One of those choices, and then something you ate yesterday, and they came together like a perfect storm. Because a habit you introduced in yourself in college started to weaken your immune system. And gradually over the decades, then this came in, that came in, and kaboom. But back then you thought, well, this is no big deal. This is no big deal. And I say this all to you because when you get to this third level of perception, this is where you see somebody with your physical eyes. This is the physical world, the physical exam. This is the exam of the chakras, where you say the obvious. To me, it's now the obvious. Where's your pain? And the tribal and you need to know all this information. You need to know. But this to me is like getting someone's energetic blood test and their urinalysis is the chakra system. It's not till you get up here and you get into the soul system and you get into the data of the mansions and you get into the data of perception and the archetypal field that you can sense the cycles of power that they are in. You sense their archetypal forces. You sense their greater data field. You sense their relationship to good and evil. You sense their relationship to grace. This gives me the data I know. This is my value. This is my gold. This is my gold. This is just, to me, energetic blood and urine test. This is my gold. Because this tells me whether or not they've got the courage to actually deal with the forces of life and death, with the forces of grace and prayer. Because just wanting to live is not enough. It's not enough. Willpower won't get you there. Not in my opinion. It simply won't. Okay? Got any questions about this? How could you? It makes so much sense. No, but go ahead.